Hi guys, and welcome back to Blind Strike Exotics. Today I am going to introduce you guys to my woma python. Her name is Sydney, and I'm also going to finish setting up her enclosure, which is the 4x2 that I got last week that I set up for my rainbow boa. Her enclosure is going to be a little different. Woma pythons are from Australia, a little more of an arid region than what the Brazilian rainbow boa is from. Their temperatures are typically around 90 degrees for the high end, and their humidity levels are a lot lower than the rainbow boa. So the setup of her enclosure is going to be a little different because I'm not going to be using sphagnum moss. I'm still going to use the coconut fiber bedding, but I'm not going to mix it with a reptile sand. Right now, she is in shed, unfortunately, so I'm going to try to add some video of her after her shed. So as I said, woma pythons are from Australia, and they are a python species that do not have heat pits on the sides of their mouth. They are cousins of the black-headed pythons. They're awesome snakes. They're ravenous feeders, and they're actually kind of known for their wanton desire to devour anything that gets near them. She's about a year old at this point. You can see how long she is. She's probably about 3 or 4 feet right now. And she was very tame for probably the first 10 months that I owned her. I got her basically as a hatchling. And then maybe about 2 months ago, anything that comes near her when she's in her enclosure is food to her. She's never defensive, she's never aggressive towards me, but she definitely bit me twice because she was hungry, and that's pretty much all the time. So I'm gonna probably start needing the hook trainer so that she's not immediately trying to bite me every time I get into her enclosure. But other than that, as you can see, I mean, she's very calm once you have her out. She's not defensive, she's not mean. I definitely wouldn't recommend them for first-time snake owners, but they're beautiful. I mean, when she sheds out her scales here, she's like a really bright yellow with a little bit of that like kind of light brown banding. Beautiful snake. And the black-headed pythons are beautiful as well. They look pretty much identical to these guys, but instead of having that yellow head, they have black heads. As you can see there, she's really yellow. She's really deep in the shed too. She actually has had a big meal 2 days ago. This is actually the calmest she's been since I've had her out in probably the last 2 months, where she isn't trying to get all crazy on me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put her back. I'm going to let her finish out her shed cycle. I'm going to start setting up her enclosure, and I'll show you guys that step-by-step process. And I'm going to set that up, let the temperatures normalize, and I probably won't move her over until she's done shedding, so she doesn't end up, going potty in the new enclosure that I just set up. And then I will get video of her after she sheds, and then I'll put her in there and show you guys how she likes her new enclosure. So let's get to the setup of the new enclosure, and welcome back to Blind Strike Exotics. Alright, so the first step in the process when you're setting up a new enclosure for your reptile, snake, skink, whatever you have, would be to set up the radiant heat panel. You can go with heat tape underneath the bottom side of the enclosure. The radiant heat panel, in my opinion, does a better job of providing even heat on one spot and also applying more radiant heat throughout the whole enclosure. It does a better job of actually keeping things heated. So on this specific enclosure and these specific heat panels, what I found out is that you need to drill a hole where you need it to be right here in the top of the enclosure, and then the screws go all the way up to the very top of the heat panel here, and then it sinks through to this top side here, you just kind of need to pull it all the way up through and put the nut on there and make sure it's really tight. The second step would be to, well, let me go back. The cable actually fits right back through the air vents in there, so I didn't need to drill any holes for the cable. The second step would be to attach the thermostat, and I put that right on top of the hot spot here, so that I will, for these guys, for the woma python, you are looking at a hot spot around 90 to 92 degrees. So I will set the thermostat to a hot spot there for probably 91, kind of be right in the middle. That way, the hottest that this enclosure will ever get will be 91 degrees. And that'll also help with keeping the cool end in their temperature range as well. So the thermostat probe also feeds back through the air vents back there. I did tape it down here just to make sure that it doesn't get moved, because if the thermostat probe were to move, let's say it went down underneath there, I mean, this thing could fry the snake. You don't want that to happen. So I taped it there. I also won't be able to see it, but I ran it along the ground and I taped it back there to make sure that she doesn't pull it out that way. And the thermostat I use here for these, it's called an iPower. You can buy these directly on Amazon. They're $15, $20. And then you just plug the heat panel in down there, and then you run the power cord directly into your wall outlet. Our next step is to add in the substrate. I have some of these leaves left over from the other enclosure as well, which I'm going to sprinkle all around a bit and give it a little more depth. These I typically buy from Josh's Frogs. They sell them in a pretty good quantity. They have a bunch of different types of leaves you can purchase as well, depending on what your taste is. The other update is I got the new door for this enclosure. If you watch my other video with the unboxing of these guys, this was cracked up in the top right by that right hand side lock. I contacted Reptile Basics and they had a new one shipped out to me within 3 days. It's really simple to remove it and to put on the new one. Just need to remove that screw there and take the locks off, and then there are these two little nuts here on each hinge that you need to undo, and that takes the whole door off. It was a pretty simple procedure, nothing too crazy. So I don't know if I'm going to add more decorations or not, so this is a pretty much completed enclosure for my woma. So it's a cold side hide, water bowl in the back, a couple logs for her to cruise over. There's the warm side hide. That's the radiant heat panel. There is an LED bar that runs the whole length of the enclosure that was pre-installed by Reptile Basics. It's an add-on when you purchase it, but I highly recommend it because it looks awesome when you put the snake in there. Plus it provides a little bit of light. It's not a replacement for UVB if you are putting a lizard or something in here that requires UVB lighting. So after you have the enclosure fully set up with the heat panel, with the thermostat, with all the decorations, the water bottle, the two hides, the next step is going to be to plug everything in, make sure it all works, and to give it a couple hours to make sure the temperatures are okay. For her, because she's in shed, I'm probably going to let it sit there, until she's done shedding, at which point I'll move her in there. But we'll cut to that. I'll show you the finished product. I'll show you Sydney post shed, which hopefully she's at her brightest, and then I will hopefully get some cool video of her cruising around her new digs. As you can see, Sydney just shed, and today's actually feeding day, so she is looking at me like I am a huge meal. So what I'm going to start doing today is actually start hook training her, because she is just wanting to bite and swallow everything. Not defensively, but it's more of a hunger feeding response. So I'm going to get her out and get her into the new enclosure, and I'll take some video of her cruising around. Alright, I'm trying to just let her kind of cruise around at her own pace. As you can see, woma pythons are just stunning. They have bright yellow heads, and they have some really cool banding as well. Now, you can't export animals out of Australia, so these guys are all going to be captive bred usually, you know, unless you get something off the black market. So there's a very limited supply of these guys in the United States, and from what I'm aware of, there really aren't any morphs at this time, but there's definitely a little bit of variability in how bright the snakes are. She has a little bit brighter of a head and a brighter of a pattern compared to some other ones I've seen. When I bought her last year, the breeder said she almost looked like she was a hypo version of the woma python, but I guess we'll figure that out as she gets a little older. I mean, she is gorgeous. I love her. Hopefully her feeding response, she tames down a little bit here as she gets older. I don't think she knows. Smelling around, figuring out what this new place is. So this is the finished enclosure. Coal hide, water bowl, some logs to cruise around on, the hot hide with the thermostat probe taped down on top of it. This should be her final enclosure. Shouldn't need anything bigger than this unless she gets abnormally large. Right now, she's probably maybe around 3 feet long. These guys definitely don't get as thick as the ball pythons do, but they get longer, girthier, a little longer snake. Say hi. Look how bright her head is. She's probably gonna try eating me here real soon. She's definitely hungry all the time. Never had an issue feeding her. I got her straight out of the egg. She's eaten for me every single time since then. Tickle her a little bit and see. Go ahead, get in there. There you go. Those stripes, look how pretty she is. Get in there. Go ahead. Time to cruise. She's hiding back there now. There she is. I'm gonna close her up since she's in there now. Make sure it doesn't get too cool. There's 3 latches up here. There we go. So that's it. That's the finished enclosure. We put her in there, let her settle down a little bit. And I'll be able to give you an update on her probably next week or in a couple weeks once she settles in, and maybe I can get some good video of her cruising around. Woma pythons are known to be pretty active during the day, so it'll be nice to be able to see her cruising around instead of just sitting in a tub and only seeing her when I take the top off. So that's it for today. I appreciate you guys stopping by, and please remember to like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. Take care and have a great day.